and value. And value. And in the end, I'm sorry, I try not to cry on TV. And I think this is kind of like me on TV.
Joy Reid's abrupt cancellation by MSNBC has thrown political media into a frenzy, leaving viewers to wonder if this is the beginning of an all-out purge of underperforming voices. One day, she was delivering fierce commentaries from the 7 p.m. primetime slot. The next, the network pulled the rug right out from under her. But was this decision strictly about ratings? Or is there a more profound, more unsettling truth behind MSNBC's latest shakeup? Let's peel back the layer. Joy Reid wasn't always a headline. She started on MSNBC weekends, building a name as a fiery commentator, unafraid to call out politicians, especially those aligned with the president. Her weekend show, AM Joy, drew a dedicated following of viewers who craved unvarnished takes on everything from economic issues to cultural divide. Before long, MSNBC decided her combative style was primetime material. In 2020, Reid stepped into the coveted 7 p.m. slot, a move some hailed as a game changer. After all, she was one of the few prominent Black women in a realm traditionally dominated by white male anchors. Some saw it as a bold statement for diversity and representation. Others believed it was a calculated DEI move to appease a shifting cultural climate. But when she arrived, rumors swirled that her forceful approach might alienate mainstream audiences. And in cable news, polarizing personalities often spell big ratings or big trouble. It turns out that it was a bit of both for Joy Reid. Yet if Reid was fearless, why did MSNBC suddenly show her the door? Joy Reid's public image was a magnet for conflict long before the 7 p.m. slot. She made waves by calling out politicians, ridiculing certain groups, and battling over social issues that had the nation split. Her scathing takedowns won applause from viewers on one side of the political aisle and drew furious backlash from the other. Behind the scenes, critics accused her of fueling culture wars rather than fostering honest discussions. Online sleuths dug up past blog posts that many found offensive. Although she apologized and tried to clarify her stance, the internet has a long memory. From that point on, everything she said on air faced heightened scrutiny. Her primetime show would sometimes veer into extended monologues aimed at one political figure or another, which could be exhilarating for fans but exhausting for casual viewers. After all, it's one thing to be outspoken. It's another to dwell on the same hot-button topics night after night. And while MSNBC's left-leaning audience might appreciate Reid's fervor, you can't blame executives for noticing that too many viewers were simply tuning out. So how does a network go from promoting someone to suddenly dropping them? The answer might lie in the top floor offices at MSNBC. When MSNBC brought in Rebecca Cutler as its new president, everyone braced for sweeping changes. Rumor had it the network was bleeding viewers at key time slots, especially younger demographics who flocked to independent media sources. Something had to give, and quickly. Cutler took a hard look at the on-air personalities. She needed to pinpoint which shows were assets and which were dragging the network down. Conventional wisdom says that you're living on borrowed time if you aren't pulling your weight in cable news. Sure enough, Joy Reid's 7 p.m. slot emerged as a weak link in overall ratings performance. She sparked plenty of buzz and tension, but her numbers weren't skyrocketing. Even strong brand recognition can't always save a show when it's not delivering the profit margin that sponsors and stakeholders demand. MSNBC decided to pull the plug, leaving watchers stunned and leaving Joy Reid on the outside looking in. Could it be that the network's pivot toward a different broadcasting style left no room for her brand of fiery commentary? Maybe. Or maybe MSNBC saw a chance to recalibrate and cut ties with polarizing anchors they felt no longer aligned with the channel's evolving goal. But if Joy Reid is out, who takes her place? And will it change the entire tone of MSNBC? MSNBC's bold move to axe Joy Reid paved the way for a new panel show featuring Alicia Menendez, Michael Steele, and Simone Sanders. On paper, this lineup aims to be a breath of fresh air, offering multiple perspectives that cater to viewers who prefer dialogue over one-sided monologues. But panel discussions can be a mixed bag. Some devolve into echo chambers if the hosts share identical politics, while others become shout fests that leave audiences overwhelmed. The real test lies in how this trio manages to spark debate without alienating huge swaths of viewers. Behind the scenes, insiders say MSNBC hopes the multi-voice approach will broaden the show's appeal and revitalize primetime rating. The question is whether shifting from a single personality who stirs controversy on her own to a group dynamic is enough to capture an audience that's increasingly turning to independent and digital platforms for political commentary. However, not everyone is convinced this new show can salvage MSNBC's slipping numbers, and some are wondering if the Joy Reid problem goes deeper than ratings alone. For many, Joy Reid's rise to primetime symbolized MSNBC's commitment to diversity in an industry often criticized for its lack of inclusivity. Detractors, however, labeled her a token hire intended to appease calls for better representation. They point to her abrupt cancellation as proof that once her numbers failed, MSNBC tossed diversity aside in favor of cold, hard ratings. Others see it differently. They believe being a DEI hire shouldn't shield anyone from accountability. If Reid's show couldn't generate enough audience interest, the network had every right to make a business decision. After all, cable news is still a cutthroat arena, and identity alone isn't a failsafe when profit margins are on the line. It's a complicated question. Did MSNBC give Joy Reid a fair shake, or was she placed in a nearly impossible position, expected to satisfy both progressive viewers and a network hungry for broad mainstream appeal? The current backlash highlights how tricky it can be for media companies to balance moral imperatives with capitalism's bottom line. Whether diversity was a factor or a footnote, one thing is clear: Joy Reid's abrupt exit has sparked huge debate. Now the world wonders, what's next for her? In today's media landscape, losing a cable news show isn't necessarily a career death sentence. Plenty of ousted hosts have resurfaced on podcasts, YouTube channels, or alternative media spaces where they enjoy greater creative freedom. Joy Reid might follow that path. If she can rally her fan base, those who loved her blunt style, she could carve out a niche on social platforms where authenticity often trumps polished professionalism. Some say she's already plotting her comeback, eyeing deals with digital streaming services, or planning to launch her own brand of investigative political coverage. Yet venturing into independent media isn't easy. Former cable news anchors often struggle without a large production staff, guaranteed advertisers, and the aura of a prestigious network. The streaming and podcast spheres can be ruthless. Monetization hinges on content that resonates quickly. Otherwise, even big names can fade into the background. But don't count Joy Reid out just yet. Her voice, polarizing or not, fills a space in progressive political commentary that many viewers still crave. If she can keep the conversation fresh and avoid rehashing the same feuds that sank her at MSNBC, there's a real chance she'll find her footing again. While Joy Reid decides her next move, MSNBC is bracing for repercussions that might shake up the entire cable news ecosystem. Joy Reid's cancellation is sending tremors across cable news. With the power of streaming platforms on the rise, networks can't afford to coast on brand loyalty alone. They need hosts who can not only spark interest, but also sustain it in a fiercely competitive environment. Consider the broader implications. If MSNBC can drop a high-profile anchor with a niche fan base, other networks may follow suit. Hosts who rely primarily on outrage-driven commentary could find themselves on the chopping block, especially if advertisers balk at divisive content that spooks mainstream audiences. At the same time, this shift could usher in a wave of panel-driven programming or hybrid shows featuring multiple hosts and guest experts. The hope is that more voices result in balanced, nuanced coverage that keeps viewers engaged. But there's also the risk of turning primetime news into a noisy carousel of talking heads, each vying for the last word. Either way, the era of relying on a single star personality might be slipping away. Unless that star can deliver multi-million viewer numbers, the media world moves fast, and cable outlets must adapt or risk being outpaced by upstarts on social media who can be just as cutting without network constraints. Which begs the question, did MSNBC jump ship too soon? Or will this be the move that finally recalibrates their fortune? The verdict from viewers has been swift and loud. Joy Reid's detractors are celebrating what they call the downfall of a host who sowed division. They say MSNBC is showing it won't protect personalities who can't meet viewership quotas. Meanwhile, her defenders see this as an indictment of a media giant that only pretends to care about inclusion when it's convenient. Social media is ablaze with debates about what this move says about the future of political commentary. Does MSNBC believe that dialed-back, less confrontational shows will attract new eyes? Or are they sacrificing authentic voices for a sanitized style of coverage that merely aims to avoid controversy? In the midst of the noise, some viewers are simply tuning out of cable news altogether, fed up with the merry-go-round of hosts hired, fired, and replaced. As streaming and on-demand content loom larger, cable networks have to fight tooth and nail to remain relevant. And if MSNBC's big overhaul backfires, it could accelerate the exodus of viewers who already find it easier to catch highlights on YouTube or Twitter. But there's still one crucial piece of the puzzle we can't ignore. What exactly triggered the final push to remove Joy Reid now? And what does MSNBC expect to gain from it? Reliable insiders whisper that the show's ratings weren't just weak. They were dropping in a demographic MSNBC desperately wants to keep. Advertisers apparently complained that Joy Reid's brand of relentless political jabs wasn't drawing the audience they needed to justify primetime ad rates. And in a business as profit-driven as cable news, that's the perfect recipe for cancellation. Others believe Reid's on-air persona became too risky, straying into territory that the network's executives couldn't comfortably defend. Controversial takes might create short-lived viral moments, but if they're not translating into consistent ratings growth, the network sees little point in keeping the gamble going. Ultimately, it looks like MSNBC decided to gamble on a panel-based approach rather than rely on a single lightning rod figure. They may be betting that a show featuring multiple viewpoints will resonate with a fracturing audience and lure back some of those younger eyes. If it works, Joy Reid will be remembered as the catalyst for a primetime reinvention. If it flops, the shakeup will stand as a reminder that cable news, for all its resources, still struggles to keep pace with the new world of digital media. Joy Reid's cancellation isn't just one show ending. It's a snapshot of cable news at a crossroads. Every day, more viewers opt for independent creators and streaming platforms that offer immediacy, variety, and a break from endless partisan battles. MSNBC's attempt to course correct might be a step toward capturing that changing market, or it could be an act of desperation. For Joy Reid, the future remains wide open. She could create her own online empire, write a book, or join another network. History shows that polarizing figures don't always vanish. Often they reemerge stronger on platforms where they're free to shape their narrative without corporate filters. Meanwhile, MSNBC's new panel show will try to prove it can deliver higher ratings and lower controversy. If it succeeds, other networks will likely follow suit, ushering in an era of group commentary over single-host dominance. But if it fails, MSNBC might find itself regretfully looking back at Joy Reid's loyal audience and the conversation she stirred. At the heart of this upheaval lies a pressing question. Has cable news run out of steam, or does it simply need fresh blood and fresh tactics to stay afloat? Joy Reid's story suggests the answer might be both. Either way, her abrupt exit has sparked a debate that's not going away anytime soon. Whether you loved her or couldn't stand her, one fact is undeniable. She shook up primetime TV and forced a major network to make a drastic move. Now all eyes are on MSNBC and Joy Reid herself to see what shocking twist comes next.